Let's start off with a text question from Julie. He says, why would a right-wing MP like Natalie Elphicke feel at home in Keir Starmer's changed Labour Party? Bridget Phillipson.
Because the Labour Party has changed, and like lots of voters across the country last week. Like lots of voters across the country last week, they're turning, people who've previously been Conservatives are turning to the Labour Party. As she was saying today, she is sick of the chaos and incompetence that's dogged her party, and she wants a party in government that's focused on the priorities of the British people, such as getting more houses built, dealing with the issues around boat crossings, and much more besides.
But are you comfortable sitting alongside on the Labour bench as somebody who's been consistently anti-immigration, not just anti-immigration, but I mean, I live in the same TV region as her, so I see her on my local TV a lot. And I mean, honestly, some of the things she said about immigrants, I can't see how she can fit in with your party.
I think it's fair to say she, like other people who've joined the Labour Party, has been on a journey. This is now the third Member of Parliament that we've been able to welcome into the Labour Party as people are turning their backs on the Conservatives, and the same was true last week across the country. I'm pleased to welcome Natalie to the Labour Party. It was a surprise to many of us because these things are always kept.
And you only learnt about it when you saw her sitting there.
Well, yeah, because the all issue, around defections these things are always kept very tight to a small number of people. So it was in Prime Minister's questions that I realised there was something going on. Same was true, of course, when Christian Wakeford defected to the Labour Party. That was just at the start of PMQs, and Christian, I know, has made a really big and important contribution to the Labour Party, having joined us.
Some of your female colleagues, I understand, are writing to the Labour whip saying that they don't feel comfortable sitting alongside someone who defended her ex-husband when he was accused and indeed convicted of sexual assault charges.
What took place was beyond unacceptable in terms of the offences that Charlie Elphicke committed. He's faced justice for that. That's as it should be, and those offences are of the utmost severity, and it's right prosecution followed from that and conviction followed. In terms of Natalie Elphicke herself, she did face sanction for some of her behaviour, and that was right and proper that took place, and I would hope in the intervening period she's reflected on that, because that wasn't acceptable. And, victims of sexual violence and abuse deserve support, absolutely.
Steve Baker, very few tweets make me laugh out loud, but yours did at lunchtime today. Just tell our audience what you tweeted.
That I'd searched in vain for a Member of Parliament in the Conservative Party who felt they were to the right of Natalie Elphicke, and one quipped he didn't realise there was any space to the right of Natalie Elphicke. So I'm afraid perhaps a bit cruel, but, you can't defect and go without a degree of criticism from your colleagues. The reality is Natalie really is on the right of the Conservative Party, particularly on issues like migration. And I admire you, Bridget, for your stalwart defence of your position. But it is pretty laughably implausible for Natalie to join the Labour Party. I think we might have thought she could defect to Reform. But I'm afraid it tickled me today when the Labour Party wasn't able to rule out accepting Nigel Farage.
I can give you that assurance if you want. If you want that, Steve. I don't think he wants to join us either. Just to be aware.
Yeah, Nigel will be relieved, I'm sure. But no, this is laughing. It's laughable. It's comical. But
what does it say about your party?
Well, I think it tells anyone in all seriousness that we're in quite a lot of trouble, that she would do this. I mean, clearly she's obviously extremely dissatisfied to defect at all. But, it's highly regrettable. Anyone who defects, I'm afraid, lives in ignominy politically for it, as I'm sure you know. But no, it's obviously not great. But defecting to the Labour Party for Natalie, specifically for Natalie, is just so implausible and laughable. At least with, I've just forgotten his name, the doctor who just went.
Dan Poulter.
At least with Dan, he's a centrist.
That's politics.
Yeah. He's gone from the Conservative Party, so I've scrubbed him from my mind. But no, Dan at least is a centrist, and you could see that plausibly he could see him credibly being willing to be on the right of the Labour Party. But with Natalie, it's just implausible and silly. I was looking.
She's right on the boats, though, isn't she? Because she has been a very vocal campaigner on that issue, particularly locally in her constituency, and the government hasn't got on top of it. Now, I don't know how you can go from a position of effectively saying they haven't got on top of it because they haven't been right-wing enough to then going to the Labour Party who've got a different nuance on it at the very least. But she is right about that, isn't she?
Well, I think she was right when she was highly critical of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party's opposition to getting this problem sorted out. No, I mean, Rishi, as he said at Prime Minister's Questions, has seen small boat crossings down by 30% since he became Prime Minister. There's signs already that the Rwanda policy is working, certainly from the complaints from the government south of the border, the Irish government. So, we're looking forward to getting flights off the ground and deterring people putting their lives at risk crossing illegally from a safe country. Let's not forget that's what it's actually about. France is a safe country. They're in the hands of people smugglers. They're putting themselves at risk, and it would be wrong to accept them when they've come illegally.
But we could have had this very same conversation 2 years ago. Not a lot has changed over the last 2 years, has it? They're still coming in very big numbers.
Well, unfortunately, some problems are wickedly hard. This is one of those problems. And also, I'm afraid, in the age of social media and cheap air travel, it might turn out that overall the various conventions that are in place aren't fit for the modern age. I mean, we've seen problems with mass migration, particularly for Italy in the past, and great tragedies have unfolded in various places in the world. So it might well be that, in good faith, we all need to have a very careful look at refugee conventions and how they work and how we can better serve everybody's interests rather than seeing people, as I say, putting their lives at risk, crossing illegally from a safe country. That's not how it should be.
OK, Tanni.
I mean, at our end of the building, we kind of watch all this with sort of a fascination, actually. And I don't think anybody, certainly in my office and down the corridor, could quite believe it. But at the moment, everything's just a little bit strange. So, the rumours going around last week, there was going to be a general election called and we're kind of waiting. So, again, our end, feels like there's lots of stuff being sort of pushed through for whenever the election happens. But in terms of Rwanda...
no, not in terms of Rwanda.
Oh, okay.
In terms of the defection. We may well have a question on Rwanda later as well.
As a crossbencher, I mean, I sit in a group of 180-odd people who go from very left-right wing to very right wing and everything in the middle. So that's kind of my daily life, really. So it's probably slightly more strange for the MPs to have to live with it than it is for us. It doesn't happen. I mean, it happens very occasionally at our end, but it's not anywhere near so dramatically either, which is a bit dull, really. But that's probably, that's our job in the House of Lords, is not to be terribly exciting, but to do line-by-line legislation.
Dan Hodges, I'm sure you've got a view on this.
Yeah, to answer your question to Steve, what does it say about the Conservative Party? It says the Conservative Party is falling apart, but we kind of knew that anyway. I think there are two practical things, though, I think, coming out of this. One is, I mean, we're all aware that the Conservative Whip's office has had a sort of a list of Tory MPs it's got on sort of defection watch.
She wouldn't have been on it, would she?
And this is the point. I mean, that list has now been thrown in the bin because the list quite clearly now extends to basically the entire parliamentary Conservative
You've
Party.
probably been added to it.
I shouldn't joke, but being someone from Cornwall, it's occasionally tempting to give Mebby and Kerno a little boost. But I shouldn't joke because I don't wish to now.
Yeah, don't do that to them,
I'll get a post back now saying that I've been rude to the Sons of Cornwall.
They were enough anyway.
But no, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, fine. I'm sure Natalie would have said that a couple of weeks ago.
Well, the Whips won't necessarily be pleased.
No, exactly. But there's also, I mean, we've got to be honest, there's also another thing, which is, obviously this is a coup for Keir Starmer and it's a boost for the Labour Party, and as I said, it underlines the sort of the strategic implosion of the Tories. But there are some concerns this evening amongst Labour MPs, amongst Labour activists, amongst Labour supporters. Bridget's done a very good job holding the line. And I do think, I mean, Bridget, just one serious thing, I mean, Bridget touched on some of the issues around Charlie Elphicke and, some of the I think you said Natalie Elphicke was self-sanctioned for some of her behaviour around that. I do think there are some questions being asked this evening within the Labour Party about whether or not sufficient due diligence is being done in relation to some of the people that are now making approaches to the Labour Party.